All right, let's talk about something real. Have you ever known exactly what you need to do, but you just can't? It feels like there's this invisible force holding you back, right? Well, today, we're diving into a really powerful idea from Eckhart Tolle that might just be the key to dissolving that resistance. And it all comes down to changing one simple belief.
I mean, we've all been there. You've got the plan, you know the goal, you might even have a little bit of motivation tucked away somewhere. But then, when it's actually time to do the thing, it's like running full speed into a brick wall. It is so frustrating. And yeah, it's a feeling pretty much everyone can relate to.
And you know, this internal struggle, it pops up in all sorts of ways. Maybe some of these sound familiar to you. Procrastination, of course. Overthinking, everything. Burnout. Or, oh man, shiny object syndrome, always chasing the next new thing. The key thing to get, though, is that these aren't a bunch of separate problems, or like character flaws. Nope, they're all just symptoms pointing back to one single, deep-down issue.
Right. So what is this resistance that we feel so strongly? Let's get to the bottom of it and figure out what the real problem is. Okay, so here it is, the root of all this struggle. It's a single subconscious belief, this little mental habit that we've all learned, and it's constantly whispering in our ear. Joy isn't here. It tells you joy is in the future, after you finish this awful task. Or it's over there, once you finally hit that big goal. It's basically anywhere but right here, right now. And this is such a critical mental trap to understand. On the surface, consciously, we think we're working towards joy, like, I'll do this hard thing now so I can be happy later. But what's really happening, deep down, our subconscious mind sees the task right in front of us as a barrier blocking us from that joy. And what do we do when we see a barrier? We push against it. We resist it. It's a setup. This belief basically guarantees that we're always going to be fighting the present moment.
Okay, so if that's the illusion, how do we break it? How do we stop believing that joy is always somewhere else? Well, it all starts with a pretty radical shift in how we think about where joy comes from in the first place.
Now this is the big one. This is the paradigm shift. See, we're taught our whole lives to treat joy like it's something outside of us, something you have to go out and find or achieve. But the revolutionary idea here is that that's all wrong. Joy is your natural default state. It's not a destination you have to travel to. It's who you are, just buried under all the noise and chatter of your mind.
And hey, this isn't some brand new idea. It's actually a really ancient understanding of what we are. There's this Sanskrit term, Satchitananda, that describes our true nature. And it breaks down into three parts: existence, consciousness, and ananda, which literally means bliss or joy. So think about that. Joy isn't something you go out and get. It's a fundamental building block of who you are, right under all that mental status.
So this quote from Eckhart Tolle, this becomes our guide, our compass. The next time you feel that resistance creeping in, just stop for a sec and ask yourself this simple question. And look, the point isn't to judge whether the task is good or bad. The point is just to check in with yourself, with your inner state, and notice if you've lost that connection to the joy of the present moment. Okay, so that's the big idea. But how do we actually bring this into our real day-to-day lives? How do we reconnect with that natural state of joy? Let's get practical. And here's some really good news. This should be a huge relief. You don't have to quit your job or drop all your goals. The fix usually isn't about changing what you're doing. The real deep transformation comes from changing how you do it.
So the actual practice is pretty simple. It's these three things. 1, give your fullest attention to the doing itself, not the outcome, the doing, whether you're typing, washing dishes, whatever. 2, completely accept this moment just as it is. Don't fight it, and think about this for a second. It's actually impossible to give your full attention to something and resist it at the same time. You can't. Resistance means part of you is fighting, but total focus leaves zero room for that fight. And finally, number 3, let go of being so worried about the future result.
And what's super cool is that there's actual science that backs this feeling up. Our own brains produce a chemical, a neurotransmitter, called anandamide. And get this, it's named after Ananda, that same Sanskrit word for bliss we just talked about. Your brain releases it when you're in a state of flow, when you're totally absorbed in the now. So that feeling of joy, it's not just some spiritual concept. It's a real, measurable, biological thing that you can actually switch on.
So what happens when you start doing this? When you consistently put your focus on the how instead of the what or the when? Well, the change can be absolutely profound.
And the shift can happen like that, instantly. It's not something you have to wait weeks for. The very second you stop fighting the present moment, the second you give it your full, accepting attention,
The struggle just dissolves. All that mental friction that was causing the unhappiness and resistance, poof, it just vanishes. And then your whole life starts to shift. You start to feel this joy for no reason, just for being here. It's not tied to achieving anything. Your relationships get better because you're actually present with people. Even boring tasks start to feel different, filled with a sense of quality and care. And the really funny thing is, when you stop obsessing over the results, they have a way of showing up on their own, often more easily than before.
All of this really brings us back to a timeless spiritual principle, one that just perfectly sums up the ultimate key to this whole practice.
And that key is non-attachment. This amazing wisdom from the Bhagavad Gita nails it. It basically says, focus on your actions, do your work with your full attention, your full care, but you have to let go of that anxious, desperate grip on the outcome. When you can do that, you find the joy in the doing, not in the getting. And when the joy is in the doing itself, well, what is there left to resist?
So, I'm going to leave you with this to think about. What could you actually accomplish if joy wasn't the destination you were trying to reach? What if it was your starting point? What if for every single thing you do, you started by connecting with the joy that's already here, in this moment? What would change for you? What would suddenly feel possible? Seriously, think about it. The answer might just change everything.